Today I'll be reading a chapter from Wes Penre's new book, Synthetic Superintelligence and the Transmutation of Humankind, a roadmap to the Singularity and beyond. The reason why I'm doing this is because Wes Penre has the best definition that I've either seen, read, or heard. It is by far the best understanding of the Mandela Effect out there. I really believe that this puts so many things into context, and it is worth getting out to the public. So with no further ado, I'll start reading. This starts on page 329. It's called The Mandela Effect and Scientists Going Crazy, and it is a part of Chapter 18 of Great Concern, because he's talking about CERN in all of this, and so this is a part of the chapter on CERN. The Mandela Effect and Scientists Going Crazy. There is one more subject that needs to be included in this chapter. Unfortunately, it's very disturbing, and it has to do with parallel universes and the so-called Mandela Effect. If you have browsed the internet lately, you may have stumbled upon something that has emerged called the Mandela Effect. The term originates from a strange phenomenon related to Nelson Mandela. Many people remember that he was put in prison many years ago, and the story goes that he died in prison, period. However, then he seems to have risen from the dead, been released from jail, just to become president of South Africa between 1994 and 1999. At the time, no one seemed to reflect over this or think that there was something strange with it. Now people do. How does this make sense? To be honest, I also recall Mandela died in prison long before he became the president. As if this wasn't enough, there are more anomalies. People have pointed out that names on labels of products carried by certain companies look slightly different when we go back in time and check out pictures of these labels and how they looked then. Let's say 30 years ago. It could be a letter or two that are now different in these original pictures from the majority of people remember. The same phenomena applies to certain popular comics and other products we usually recall very well as part of our culture's history. This phenomena seems to be real. But how can it be explained? Many think that we are now living in a slightly different universe that is more or less the same as the old universe, except for some details, such as altered labels in comic books, and Mandela both being dead and alive at the same time. If the Mandela Effect is true, we will probably continue finding more strange changes to our past reflected in our reality now. In fact, people are already noticing this on an exponential scale, as we see when we browse the internet on this subject. I have written page after page about different probabilities. Example, when we choose one option out of two, or perhaps three other options, we tend to focus our attention on the option that we choose, and that will become our reality. However, the other options still exist as potential realities, or alternative universes, one could say. These probabilities could be activated any time if the person suddenly changes his or her mind and decides to choose one of the other two options instead. If so, the path the person is taking currently halts in its progression, and the person's attention energy will now go to the alternative universe. This happens every time we change our minds, so it's not a big deal, except for the overlords. Changing our minds as often as we do is confusing for the overlords because, in their eyes, this makes it seem as if we are all over the place, and it's difficult to control us. Thus, the AIF do their best to make us focus on one primary timeline. This is quite important for them, in order to have us focus enough to be trapped in the singularity. Nevertheless, are we suddenly, as a soul group, living in an alternative universe, on an alternative timeline? It certainly seems so, and we know it can be done. We have the proof that the Mandela Effect can be made real, and probably has been made real. My fellow researcher Robert Stanley recently sent me a video lecture made by a corporate owner and a scientist who held a briefing for interested parties regarding what is supposed to be the latest in technology. See video below. The video is Mandela Effect, 20 minutes that will change your life. When I watched this video, I found it quite stunning for several reasons. The first thing that came to mind was how somebody can believe that anything that this scientist presents can be for the good of mankind. Worse than that is the fact that the lecturer is so enthusiastic about this that he can't wait to let people know. He is throwing himself and the rest of mankind down the bottomless pit with the greatest of passions. This presenter tells his audience that 2 supercomputers are now in place. One is located in the University of Southern California, and the other one is located in British Columbia, Canada. They are called D-Wave, and they look like 2 giant cubes. These 2 computers are based on an entirely new technology and are being used by NASA. Previously, we have had computers that are based on binary system, 1s and 0s, but these 2 devices are quantum computers, and they work in a totally different manner. Inside these D-Waves, there are giant refrigerators, where scientists have managed to decrease the temperature to almost absolute zero, where absolute zero being 0 degrees Kelvin, negative 273.15 degrees Celsius, or negative 459.67 degrees Fahrenheit. This is 100 times cooler than interstellar space, says the scientist. Furthermore, he says that when he is standing in the same room as one of these D-Waves, he can hear a very specific sound coming from the computer, and it sounds like a heartbeat. When he is saying this, he almost becomes ecstatic. He compares it to an altar to an alien god, interestingly enough. These people often speak in codes, and he was just telling us who the real inventor of this computer technology is. Consequently, the scientist tells us what these quantum computers can do, and he tells us in increments, so that it will sink in with the audience. He reveals that these 2 computers, which he says are the only ones of their kind in the world, can tune into parallel universes. He calls them parallel universes to begin with, but later on uses other terms for them as well, such as alternative universes, and more interestingly, alternative probabilities. After all, he says, parallel universes are alternative probabilities. Then he begins to tell us the same thing I've been writing about, which is how our choices create different probabilities in alternative universes that are not necessarily active, but are still there, and they remain there as charged energy. The presenter acknowledges that these different timelines exist, and they overlap each other. What these quantum computers can do is find the exact spot where 2 alternative universes' probabilities overlap. He says that there are always 2 universes that are identical, except for some very small details, a 1 bit of difference, as he calls it, albeit he is quick to emphasize that these computers are not based on a binary system. If you were in the twin universe, my term, you would barely notice that you were there because you exist in both of them. However, there may be some small differences that you would eventually notice over time. It seems quite similar to time travel and the potential effects a time traveler can create when traveling to the past. I covered that elsewhere in this book. This scientist is absolutely correct when he is explaining alternative universes, which is just another word for the multiverse, where everything is fluid, and every thought we're thinking will register in the multiverse. What science obviously has achieved is to tap into a parallel reality, which is very similar to ours because it's based upon a universe where 2 very similar decisions were made, but not entirely similar. The difference in similarity will only slightly alter the second universe. What does this mean? It means that we have the solution to why the Mandela Effect is happening. Not only can scientists tap into an alternative universe, they already have. When they did so, the Mandela Effect automatically took place. People will have 2 memories of one event, and both will be correct, such as in the case where Nelson Mandela both died in prison and survived and became president of South Africa. One event happened in one universe, and the second event, where Mandela survived, happened in a second universe. We who experience this controversy now live in the parallel universe. Yes, you read that correctly. Scientists have altered our reality. Moreover, this scientist is both enthusiastic and proud of this AIF-sponsored achievement. He ends his lecture by giving us what he calls 3 dangerous predictions that probably won't happen, but will likely happen, whatever that means. However, here are his dangerous predictions. 1. By 5 years, NASA will find an Earth-like planet and they will know how to get there. The D-Wave computers will be the key to get there. 2. The business of parallel universes is going to be very important. He predicts that by 2023, a major breakthrough in physics will occur based on a model whose cornerstone is the reality of parallel universes. An experiment will be performed on a quantum computer that will support the new theory. 3. This third prediction is the most important of them all. According to this man, and I quote, "By 2028, intelligent machines will exist that can do anything humans can do. Quantum computers will have played a critical role in the creation in this new type of intelligence." After telling us of his predictions, he ends his lecture by saying that the most important emerging tech revolution is that machines will outpace us in every respect, in everything. Within 15 years, the machine will outpace humans. Throughout the lecture, this man keeps saying, "This is very exciting, at least it is to me." Well, he's correct on one major thing. This is all extremely dangerous. But by the same token, these people know what they're doing, and they know what effects they are creating. Moreover, they are shoving it in our faces, again, so that we are prepared, and the overlords can make sure they inform the public and got at least the majority of them to agree with the agenda. By the way, it should come as no surprise that Google pulled this thing together, to quote the lecturing scientist. Thereby he acknowledges that Google is the company that made this entire D-Wave project possible by funding it. What is it that they really want to accomplish with all of this? The way I see it, there's only one answer. They are doing this to keep humanity on one common timeline. It has everything to do with what we discussed throughout the Wes Penre Papers, but also in this book. It's about putting a stop to humanity's unpredictability. How could the overlords make us focus on the singularity if we are changing timelines constantly? What this guy explained to the audience is the tip of the iceberg. Scientists have experimented with changing our timeline, but just slightly so that they can see the effects. As we grow closer to the singularity, I'm sure there will be a last, more drastic change that will make everybody focus on one nexus point, the exact point between two parallel realities, and that is where the singularity will take place. This is why Kurzweil is ranting about the singularity taking its name from the phenomenon of the event horizon of a black hole. The hypothesis is as follows. In the center of a black hole, there is a gravitational singularity, a place where space and time cease to have any meaning, the point where laws in physics break down. A person who, from a safe distance, would watch an object moving towards a black hole would see the object moving slower and slower until it came to a complete halt at the event horizon, and it actually never falls into the black hole. Again, what does this mean? In Kurzweil's analogy, it apparently means that our development toward the singularity halts at the event horizon, where we are still in the same old universe, but exactly there, at the event horizon, is the nexus point that will make us change realities by jumping into a parallel universe. Kurzweil might say that this is just an analogy he's using, but these people are clever. He knows better than that, and the Mandela Effect and the insights the scientists in the video presented proves it. The event horizon analogy that Kurzweil talks about is not an analogy or an allegory at all. It's literal. After the shift, humanity will be on the same timeline for a moment long enough for the overlords and the controllers to act, and that is apparently the moment they need. If this doesn't make one's soul shiver, I don't know what would. The next question is, what does this have to do with CERN? I think it has everything to do with CERN, and I believe that this technology is exactly what they are working on there right now. After all, haven't we been told that the LHC is creating mini black holes? What a coincidence! What the scientist in the video does not tell us is that although the two quantum computers he mentions may be the only ones in existence, the LHC is an extension of these computers. It's in CERN, Switzerland, where the real stuff is happening. How can humanity avoid this from occurring? Well, we can't, unless we put a stop to what the scientists are doing, but that's not realistic. It requires a mass awakening very, very soon, and we need to be united in order to stop this. What we can do, however, will be discussed in Chapter 21. To be brutally honest, I can only see one way out of this. End of Chapter 18. This reminds me of the books published by Frederick Pohl, introducing the Heechee in 1972 in The Merchants of Venus, and also in 1977 through 2004 in Gateway, Beyond the Blue Event Horizon, Hichi Rendezvous, and a few others. In these books, the Hichi are an extinct race, or supposedly an extinct race, but they're not extinct at all. They are running experiments, and they have hidden themselves in the event horizon of a black hole. And they get to stay there, living life for just an hour or two, and then they leave to check on the universe to see how their experiment has gone, where within the event horizon, they are experiencing a form of timelessness, while outside of the event horizon of the black hole, time, literally, hundreds of thousands, millions of years pass. And so all of their old stuff that's outside of the event horizon looks like ancient alien artifacts, but in reality, they've only been within the event horizon for a few hours, because they're just running experiments on the universe and using the universe as their little toy, and that they're just playing God with. With that being said, the overlords and the controllers are probably doing something similar, and they want to trap us in that event horizon, a transhumanistic matrix type system where we're plugged into computers and where we become a part of a computer matrix. That way, they don't have to answer for their karma. They don't have to worry about the choices that they've made, and they don't have to answer for any of it, because now they've trapped people within this event horizon, and they've literally created a world, a dimension that is timeless, and that they can exist for all eternity as gods. And then the people that go along with this, who join into their transhumanist agenda, also get immortality as their servants. Interesting stuff, wouldn't you agree? I'm interested to hear what you think about this, so please leave a comment below. If you enjoyed the video, please click like. And if you'd like to read Wes Penre's book, then please, by all means, click the link in the description section below, and you can go there and read the entire book and download it for yourself. I really recommend his other books as well, the Wes Penre Papers, but this one is a little bit different and a little bit more concerned with transhumanism and the Singularity. I'm Nathan Martin with the Divine Pollination Hive. Be safe, be sovereign, be well.